have to be really careful for an athlete. You can do it from a January point of view. You have to teach them the exercise, but more likely you're going to end up having to start it in October or sometime in the summer. So let's say we have a team that starts, football team or team handball, that starts in October, or winter sports. What we can do with this team is we know that May is going to be a month where school ends. So that might have to be either April or May is usually months where athletes, especially winter athletes, want to take off. This is where we use the transition phase and the stabilizer muscles. If you have a true athlete, he's going to do something in this off season. You have to define what he's going to do. I like to do stabilizer muscles because they really don't have time to do them other parts of the year. When I first started defining stabilizer muscles for biathletes, I saw incredible increases. But then as I went along, after training for 4 or 5 years, I realized that their stabilizer muscles fell down. And this will happen in swimming and a lot of sports too. Once their stabilizer muscles fell down, because I only did them a year, they started to get injured or they started to lose their technique. So now I carry stabilizer muscles as a main exercise through the year. But what we want to do with athletes is we want to find out when's the best time for them to train. So for instance, say they can train, their off season is June, July, and August. These are usually in modern day sports your summer off time. They don't have long off seasons. So these are the periods where you want to have an activation phase for them, or an anatomical adaptation, maximum strength phase. And a lot of times what you do is when they start practice is when you can put into play more power. Because keep in mind, even though we want to develop power by the time they get to the sport so we can have maintenance of power, a lot of times you really don't have a long enough off season to start the sports. So you have to develop your sports annual plans around what the athletes can actually do, what equipment they have. When you walk into a room with an athlete, you can look at an athlete and say, what kind of equipment? If we have 20 pieces of equipment or 20 athletes training in the gym and we have 2 leg presses and 2 squat racks, how do we train them all? So we have to design programs around it, and we'll go into choosing exercises later about how to choose the exercises for specific programs and where they fit into the whole picture of the training program. So with athletes, when you design annual plans, you have to stand back and look. How much time do they have? I train a lot of female athletes. Most of the female athletes, by the time they're in October, I can train them 1 time a week and they maintain their strength because they go to school, they practice at school, they practice at the club system. So really they only have 1 strength training program a week. If I can get them to do that 1 strength training program a week, I'm 10 times ahead of the game. If you're lucky enough to be able to get 2 times a week or a power workout twice a week, because in Europe you have club teams and you have school team or school practice. Depending on where you're at, depending on what your program, what your athlete is, you have to decide how much time they have to train. And then their maintenance program can possibly go the whole season. Depending on the athletes, of course, you can add power in here. You can add muscle endurance in here. Depending on the coaches, the athletes, the different concepts that they're looking for their goals. And a lot depends on where the athlete lies in their career. Younger athletes have more trouble with strength training. We've found here a lot of our athletes, they've never been taught to run or to do power or to do coordination and agility exercises. So after a couple of years of strength training, they've really had enough strength training. So can you have too much strength training? No, you can't have too much, but you can have enough if the other factors of your agility and your power are lower. So when you design annual plans, and you'll see in some of the annual plans that I've put out for you, there's a whole different variation of how we can design these annual plans. So keep that in mind when you design the annual plans. If you have questions, we'll go over some more later on.